So what did I tell y'all, man? Like, legit, the Donald Trump election was an FU from the workers of this country, all right? It was eating blue collar and white collar and everybody who pays taxes, telling the corporations and the powers that be that we are no longer interested in watching our jobs being shipped to China. We're no longer interested in continuing to, squabble with them over, having immigrants here to drive down the cost of labor and drive up the cost of living on a regular basis. So guess what? You know what they did? They stood here and performed a coup. All right. And they decided to steal an election and put somebody in office who was going to do what it is that they told them to do. So check this out. First thing that Joe Biden's going to do, he's going to motherfucking reverse the policies that Trump put in to stop immigration. Let's check it out.
Biden is promising to put the pandemic and economic recovery at the forefront of his administration, but his administration is also planning a swift reversal of the Trump administration's most controversial immigration policies. The issue took a backseat to the coronavirus for much of the 2020 race. Little time was spent on the campaign trail or during the debates discussing Mr. Trump's overhaul of the U.S. immigration system. But as our Camilo Montoya Galvez reports, the incoming Democrat plans to dismantle much of the agenda laid out by the president over the past 4 years within his first 100 days.
What I tell y'all? You know what I'm saying? What did I tell y'all? Legit. This is exactly what was going to happen. There was, look. This is not about, like, any type of social justice. They don't really care about poor people. They don't give a shit about workers. They don't care about this country. Legit, they care about corporations. That's what they care about. All right? And legit, the individuals who stand here and fund their campaigns. This is two parties of corporate motherfucking just dominance. That's what this is. And they don't care about you. They don't care about me. All right, they don't care about any of us. They want more immigrations because they need to get the cost of labor down. Because heaven forbid we rebuild the American middle class. Real shit. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's see exactly what they're talking about.
Camilo joins me now from Kenville, New Jersey. He's a CBS News immigration reporter. Camilo, welcome. Great to have you with us. So what are the first moves Mr. Biden plans to make when he's sworn into office on January 20th regarding immigration?
Sure. Good afternoon, Tanya. President-elect Joe Biden's team is already preparing to start the process of dismantling much of President Trump's legacy on immigration. This has been an area of policymaking where the Trump administration has achieved relative success compared to other areas, creating more than 400 different changes. During the first days in office, we can expect the incoming Biden administration to fully restore the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program that protects more than 640,000 undocumented immigrants who were brought to the U.S. as children from deportation. They are known as Dreamers. We can also expect the incoming administration to implement a moratorium on deportation for the first 100 days until officials issue new guidance to limit who can be arrested and deported from the country. As you can perhaps recall, Tanya, during the Trump administration, officials rescinded Obama-era guidelines that really limited who could be arrested and deported by ICE. So we will probably see a return to those guidelines. We're also going to see a review of temporary protected status programs. These are temporary protections for hundreds and thousands of immigrants from El Salvador and other countries around the world that the administration has tried to end. We can see that the Biden administration will likely review these programs, and the vice president has already pledged to grant certain Venezuelans in the U.S. temporary protected status.
Well, let's talk about that protective status. Does Mr. Biden plan to change the asylum and refugee process to revert to sort of the pre-Trump administration system that was in place?
That's an excellent question because, as we've discussed previously on the show, the Trump administration has implemented numerous asylum restrictions, mainly to target border crossers at the U.S.-Mexico border. The incoming Biden administration, has pledged to discontinue the practice of requiring non-Mexican migrants to wait in Mexico for the duration of their asylum cases. This is more commonly known as the Remain in Mexico policy, but it is still unclear, Tanya, what will happen to the cases of the people currently in the program who are waiting in northern Mexico, because many of them have left to their home countries, and whether or not they will be allowed into the U.S. to continue their proceedings here.
Oh, word. You're concerned about the individuals who legitimately, well, I don't feel like fucking waiting, I'll just go to fuck back home. Well, maybe they shouldn't have left their fucking homes. Like, when it comes down to it. Like, man, listen, like, it's a really simple process, all right? It's a really simple thing. Americans, all right, can't afford to live anymore. Americans are becoming poor. They're automating jobs, they're, exporting jobs. They're eliminating jobs, right? And on top of this, the cost of living is going up because you want to continue to bring in fucking poor people from around the world to compete with Americans for housing. Because, we're not really building new housing on a regular basis. And it's only doing it if it's profitable for fucking businesses to do so. It just kind of tends to be how things operate, in this system that we're currently in right now. So the problem is that, everybody wants to move to all these fucking cities and all these metropolitan areas where there's jobs, right? And then it raises the cost of living there. And then Americans who are already here can't afford to survive. You're literally harming Americans by bringing more people in. And then those individuals who are already, who are leaving their countries are leaving because they don't want to fix the countries that they're already in. They'd much rather come here to a place where we already fight and argue and go through all the bullshit and do the hard work of, maintaining a society, because they don't want to do it themselves at home. They want to take advantage of what it is we already have done here. It's fucking bullshit, and it shouldn't be fucking happening. Let's finish this shit up.
Sources familiar with Mr. Biden's plans also tell us that the incoming administration will consider reviving an Obama-era program that allowed at-risk children in Central America to reunite with their families here if their parents have some type of legal status here in the U.S. This was a program that the Obama administration created to deal with the surge in border crossings by unaccompanied minors, but President Trump ended it in 2017. And when it comes to refugees, as you know, President Trump has slashed refugee admissions for every year since he's been in office, and has set the current 15,000 person cap, which is the lowest on record. Mr. Biden has promised to increase that cap to 125,000. So that is a big promise, and experts have.
How is this good for America? The only people this is good for is corporations, so that they can drive down the wages. That's all. That's the only people that this is good for, legitimately. All right, and I'll be honest with you. All right, you notice I'm not talking about crime or any nonsense like that, because it's fucking bullshit. First generation immigrants do not cause as much crime as American populations. I understand this. I'm not concerned about crime. All right, I'm concerned about my pocket. I'm concerned about the fact that, my kids and me have to stand here and pay more and more and more for housing, and I have to accept lower paying, shittier jobs, and my kids have to accept lower paying, shittier jobs, because of the fact that they have to compete with international labor. We cannot allow the whole world to come live there. Why don't they in their countries stand here and fight for property rights and fight for all the things that we have here, so that they can make their countries more like here, rather than us making our countries more like theirs? Because that's really what's fucking happening right now.
Told me that it will take some rebuilding, Mr. Biden will need to rebuild the infrastructure to really taking these large numbers of refugees.
Now, of course, Camila, we know one of the reasons the president was able to, establish all these new immigration policies is he did a lot of them through executive order and not through a congressional mandate. So will that make it easier or harder for Mr. Biden to roll these back? Could he run into any legal or procedural challenges as he does so?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. It will be easier for Mr. Biden to come in and start undoing many of these policies because, as you very well noted, they were implemented through executive actions, proclamations, policy memos, regulations, White House directives. things like the efforts to halt the DACA program, the so-called travel ban, the asylum restrictions at the U.S.-Mexico border, the public charge requirements for green cards, those were all implemented through actions that invoked the president's executive authority. So yes, Mr. Biden has the legal authority to unwind all of these policies, but because of the scope and the volume of all these changes, experts tell me that it will be an arduous task. It will not be an easy task for Mr. Biden to just dismantle this legacy, at least during his first year in office. So we can see this potentially dragging out.
Camilo?
Yeah, it feels like he wanted to say more there, but, you know what I mean? Like, it's dragging out, you know. Yo, look, all right. This is bullshit. Legitimately, this is garbage. This has nothing to do with racism or xenophobia or anything in this nature. All right, legit. I love Mexicans. Like, I'm fucking my kids' godfather's Cuban. You know, I mean, the other ones are black and Puerto Rican. Like, you know, and I'll be honest with you, I picked them. Right? Like, those are my homies, right? They my boys and shit. Like, legitimately, this has absolutely nothing to do with any type of xenophobia or racism in any way, shape, or form. This has to do with the fact that, yo, look, all right, if you're here right now, fine. If you're not here, you don't come to fuck in anymore. I think we need to close down all immigration completely when it comes down to every ounce. We don't need any more goddamn immigrants right now. Like, straight up. And they're like, oh, man, we need to get the best and the brightest here. Like, we already have the best and the brightest. It's just we want them for cheap. That's the fucking problem. It's that Google doesn't want to pay them. All right? Amazon doesn't want to pay them. Right? Fucking Facebook doesn't want to pay them. These giant companies, Monsanto doesn't want to pay them. Right? Smithfield doesn't want to pay them. These companies don't want to pay for fucking workers. They don't want to raise prices because they're concerned that if they raise prices, they're going to have lower amounts of motherfucking money coming in because people aren't going to buy their products, which is fine. That's what's supposed to happen. All right? When you print money, inflation is supposed to happen. You're not supposed to print money and then go, hey, government, you know what I mean? And the government going, oh, well, don't worry about it. We'll print money. We'll stop inflation by just bringing in cheap fucking labor for you so we can keep down fucking cost. No. No. All right? Because what you're doing is you're literally just fucking the underclass. All right? You're fucking the middle and the poor people. That's what's going on right now. And it's bullshit and it shouldn't be happening. Anyway, yo, I'm Tom Pease with Pnoid News. I wanted to bring this to you. Peace.